if I left that, see, I didn't get any, I know what happened now. Okay, sorry guys. Jesus, Murphy. What happens is, I have a small apartment, and I usually keep the washroom door open, and I have a bedroom, which is just on the other side. I'm in a basement. So pretty much everything is down here. And if I'm running a session like I did last night, which is really weird, because I gotta check out that YouTube video. Unless I hit it sometime, because I had an hour of talking afterwards. Oh, jeez. Oh my god. I went on for an hour afterwards. But let's just say I ranted quite a bit. And the funny thing about that now, this is hilarious. The funny thing about that now is I'm going to have to check that later. I'm not going to re-rant again. But I went on for a good hour about a lot of things, but anyways, I've already posted messages on various forums, Train Sim, whatever, my forum. I've been yelling, not yelling to this guy, but basically getting really frustrated again at what I can't do. Because I see so much potential in Run 8, and it's, you know, it's not, it has nothing to do with the number of people. It has nothing to do with, you know, 2 people on Sunday, 1 person yesterday. In fact, if any good news is my son seems interested. He seems serious. How long that'll last, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. But I'm not going to rehash everything that I said or whatever. Forget it. It's probably better off, you know. And I didn't get any comments or anything. There was 5 people that were watching, so it must have gone through. I remember when I turned off. I got on for an hour. There was 5 people watching. So unless they all fell asleep or whatever, I must have just hit that thing. My microphone has like a sensitive mute. But sometimes what happens is the one time I caught myself, I went to the washroom, I came back, and I forgot to unmute it. And I have no way of knowing unless I see this little monitor here. So let's talk about what I can do. And that is probably a lot of pipe dreams. But I've come to the conclusion that the AI dispatcher with Run 8 is a pipe dream. It ain't gonna happen. And I have to accept that reality. I can bitch, moan, cry, whine, do whatever whatever it is, it's not going to do any good. I've already made my case. And if I just keep going on about it, all I'm going to do is make myself even more ticked about the fact. You know, we're waiting on somebody, on the Run 8 gods and their disciples to produce something, basically. And then once that's there, anything beyond that is just going to have to come along at whatever snail's pace a small company wants to put out. And if they want to keep on expanding big routes and making it more difficult to control, well, I don't know. I don't know how numbers are. I really don't know. But like I said, last night I was saying I won't go too far on this because I want to focus on the positive here. Southwest and Southeast servers, I don't know what's going on with them. They're the former RTS servers, and they split off to me to do their own thing. I don't know what's going on with them, but they don't seem to be doing too much. Maybe they are, maybe I'm wrong, but their forms are worse than mine. But anyways, let's move on. At least I'm still, at this point, I'm still posting messages. I haven't given up, and if anything, I'm just moving on. And you know, now I'm getting my son involved. I'm going to push on for other things, and we'll see what happens. And it looks like, you know, we'll take it from there. So what I want to push on to is I did a few little searches real quick because as I posted on my forum tonight, there was one thing that may be a pipe dream that could possibly not be much of a pipe dream at all. Now, I was thinking about getting into Unity as opposed to Unreal 4 just because it's a little bit easier to program. And it's not that I need to have a basic programming, but if I want to get stuff done, I may want to consider using it. And then just try to keep things simple for now. Just get some stuff done, get some ideas out there, and wait and see what happens. So we'll start with this. All game developers can now use, well, first of all, let me go in and show you. For you guys that don't know what Freight Yard Manager is, I'm going to play you a video. And this is how I recall it. This is a YouTube video from James Hill, which I believe he's the former owner of Freight Yard Manager. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, somebody took over from him, or somebody bought the company from him, or something like that. This was back in 2013. I was already into Run 8 by then, but before that I was into Freight Yard Manager. I consider Freight Yard Manager, or maybe Yard Duty, I don't know what's going on because I haven't really checked the Yard Duty out, but I consider both in one form or another to be the best railroad simulators on the planet. Now notice I said railroad. I say Run 8 is the best train simulator on the planet. Everything else is a nice game. Or a close, maybe a close second to some of these things, but I don't consider them to be the best. That's just my opinion. Some might have better graphics, some might have better scenery, some might have better this, eye candy sound, world editors, you name it. But those two, well, Freight Yard Manager and Yard Duty are kind of based on the same thing, really. Just the programming went off a little different. Yard Duty was abandoned, Freight Yard Manager took over, then Yard Duty was reincarnated or something. I don't know. But this is what Freight Yard Manager looks like. And this video does a pretty good job. So it's 3 minutes and 13 seconds. It's off of, you can take a look, and if you want to take a look for it yourself. But I'm going to play the whole video right now. Take a look for yourself and enjoy. It's only 3 hours and 13 minutes. 3 minutes and 13 seconds. Here we go. That's a server mod, what you're seeing right there, the maps and trains. So you have the different states. You can input you got the trains on the server and various things, and then these are the various maps and what the trains look inside them. You'll eventually see Barstow. I don't know if there's Folkestone was in there. I didn't see it, but. There's Barstow. I'll take a look at that for a second. Did I miss it? Yeah, that looks pretty cool. Look at the difference with the Humble in that Barstow compared to the one we got. It's too bad they didn't go for that afterwards. Everything else looks kind of the same, but interesting. And the color codes, you can put it into filters to do various things. But anyways, let's move on. So this will explain how it runs. You'll see the comments. the intermodal cranes work in the intermodal yard. Runs a little bit quicker too, I would imagine. Even the hump looks like it's a little faster, I would say. But still, it's not real time. You gotta think of it that way. It's about sorting cars and doing its thing, but and those through trains, you have to bring them into your world off a server and then run them, so you can put them onto a connecting server, or not a connecting server, connecting map. So you got the coal, various industries. So anyways, that's Freight Yard Manager. I'll go into more about this in a minute here. So Freight Yard Manager, here's my pros and cons as far as what I could see. The thing with Freight Yard Manager, and I might have mentioned this before in a video, the big thing about that is I used to run Mac Yard in Toronto years ago. I think I had a couple other maps. What happens is you become a yard master of a particular map. Like various maps are out there, and then you can, I don't know if it was you bid for maps, or you bid to become yard master, or you took over from somebody being yard master and somebody wanted to give it up. And once you're the yard master, you're basically the user that's assigned as the yard master. You can have more than, you can have people help you, or have more than one yard master, but basically one has the map. I think how it works, I forget exactly how it goes, but it's so that because the server basically holds all the files, the files that are coming in and out. So if you're basically processing everything. So it's very, you know, if you have a lot of time on your hands, if you're not working, which I think was a lot of the case with me, a lot of times I might have been working part-time or stuff like that, or not as many hours, I would have more time, or I wasn't, you know, in relationships or anything. This was before I met my ex, I'm pretty sure of that, so it's got to be well over 10 years ago now. And what would happen is you would bring in, you know, you would have a lot of people sending you trains through the Freight Yard Manager network. So it was a demand-based system. They would send you the trains. It wasn't based on a schedule. Sometimes they would use real-world train numbers and stuff like that. But what happens is the industries get set for other industries on other people's maps. So the industrial areas are the ones where the trains are made up, or not made up, or are assigned the way bills and whatever, and they're assigned the loads, and then they're picked a destination based on, I forget how the hell it works, to be quite honest. It's been too long. But basically everything moves, and what happens is if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can build more trains and send more trains out. Or I forget exactly how that works. The bottom line is, if you don't have much time on your hands, more people are out there, and they wind up they wind up bringing in more trains to your territory, and they'll overwhelm you very quickly. And if you can't keep up with it, that's when people give up their yards. Some people have more than one yard when they can handle it, but a lot of times people, especially some of the bigger yards, such as, some of the bigger ones you saw there, if you have selected a little amount of time, you really don't have the ability to use the bigger yards. And nobody else gets to run into them. All they do is send it to you. So really, all each person is doing is handling his or her own yard. There's other ones where there are no yard master, where it's just running through and the train runs through some connecting map of some sort. I forget. It's been too long. But that's freight yard manager. So for me, I always wanted to see a connection to some type of 3D simulator. Jim Hill, the owner or the author of the program, was totally against that. He didn't want to. He wanted it basically to be freight yard manager. He didn't want to connect to anything else. He didn't want any type of involvement with any 3D simulator or any multiplayer or trying to expand. I've always tried to bring in other communities. I've always tried to bring the train dispatcher community into Run 8. I've always tried to bring, because I think there's various assets of railroading or the railroad hobby that a lot of people are interested in. And I think that there is potential for dispatchers that we may want to get into Run 8. There's potential for people who like yards, who freight yard manager, they may want to get into Run 8, or there's people who Run 8 who might want to get into freight yard manager, etc., etc. I mean, I think there's room for those kind of things to evolve and be compatible with each other. It's just the programs have to be capable of doing it. Right now, Run 8 is a closed system. So is freight yard manager. There is no potential to interact, with the exception of the save train file that you basically have to spawn in. That's the only way you can do it. But how you get that into a freight yard manager or something like that, you need a software like an RTS to be the conduit. Personally, I have no interest in doing something like that. There's no interest in freight yard. There's no interest, if anything. I mean, maybe down the road, perhaps, but it's too much work to try to make something, just show up on one map for the sake of having a 3D simulator. It just doesn't seem appropriate, at least. Despite the fact that Run 8 is growing their network, which is, maybe it's open for it if you had something. But anyways, so which one do I show you next? We're speaking along the lines of maps, and I'll go with this one first. This was a flight simulator that I ran before I downloaded Flight Simulator X for Steam, which unfortunately just sits in my library and I hadn't been really using it. And this was at a time where I was kind of drifting away from Run 8. Now, this is very interesting because it uses worldwide aerial imagery. It's a pretty good. It's a basic simulator. It's not as good as, but it has real life commercial traffic, which I did not know. I never noticed that. But anyways, I guess there's joystick support. So it's built on top of Cesium, a 3D globe technology just like Google Earth that provides global, highly detailed, full realistic landscape. I don't know too much about that. The environment can be dynamically lit depending upon the time of day, runway lights, and Papio render major runways, location selector, blah blah blah, navigation. So this is kind of what it looks like. Now you can see when you're in a 3D cockpit in a Google Earth type thing, it kind of looks, it's not as crisp on the outside because you can see how, okay, it's using real world maps, but it actually, the lower to the ground you are, it actually doesn't look good. And then you can see who's flying in the and this isn't active right now, but this is allows you to see. Oh, I guess it is active. It seems to be active. So these are the people that are flying right now. So there's 62 players that are currently logged in. One just popped up there. And so that is the live map. That's interesting. And the instructions how to do it. So if you're interested in something like that, that's where you go, geo-fs.com. Finally, I came across this one, and this is an ad that all game developers can now use Google Maps to make real-world games. A host of new features. This article was published on March 15th, 2018. So they're putting a map platform to allow game developers to make games that use real-world locations. Now, Pokemon Go was developed by Niantic using Google Maps technology. Niantic was at one point owned by Google. I don't care about that advertising, but adding Unity support also seems to bring in a much so. Google has announced a new software development kit for the Unity game engine, which I have looked at. I was trying to decide between going into Unity, which is actually much more user-friendly, but in some ways is not as powerful. But one, it's user-friendly, and two, I'm not 100% sure, but it may be more open to having in-house world editors. So that I have to look into that a little bit more. I haven't looked into this a little bit. I've been very busy with Run 8 as of late, so I really haven't spent too much time looking into this. So it'll allow developers to incorporate Google Map data into their game worlds and build on them with existing game engine tools. Adding Unity support also brings so companies 3D mapping technology. Now Unity is free, but there is a I think after you make so much or something like that, then they'll charge you a little bit. But you know, to obviously make the idea is they want to get developers. They want to get their engine out there so that they can make money. And it's a win-win. I mean, if I'm going to be making money off a video game, yeah, sure. But if I'm not going to make money off of it, no, I don't want to be risking that kind of money on my hobby. So I don't know if Google has that same relationship or a feature or the API, and it costs you a certain amount of money, or it's based on licensing or whatever. Don't know too much about this yet. But anyways, I'll show you this video. This is the very short video. Okay, so that is that. And I don't know what to put into a background to make things interesting. There's a lot of things I can put into a background. Well, let's just, I don't know. Do I want to go to a YouTube that's playing trains? I could, I suppose. Hang on a second here. Let me just put something in the background here, and I will find something real quick here. Just give me a minute. The reason why I want to put a background is because I want to talk about this now. I'm looking. I don't see too much in here. I thought I had a subscription to something. Yeah, whatever. I don't know if I want to do live train railways 24 live. No, I don't want to do virtual railfan. Yeah, here's a good one. So I'll turn the volume down a bit. I'm just putting this as a background. Not to try to get hits or anything like that, but just something that we can enjoy while I talk about things. Obviously, the focus is trains. So, there's a lot of ways, of course you go into a tunnel. There's a lot of ways to look at this in regards to what is a pipe dream, what's possible, how it can be done. And I'm thinking more along the lines of, if I can get something to work, a real world map would be nice. Now, like I said, the thing with Freight Yard Manager, what they do is they take a real, they're free. I love those signals, those are weird. Denmark or Netherlands or wherever the hell they are. But the real world maps in Freight Yard Manager, first of all, if they're getting it from Google, number one, it's free. So it doesn't really apply too much, although, you know, copyright could be considered. But then they just basically take the map and they have a map curator that approves or doesn't approve of maps. The coordinates are set up for the tracks in the various yards, and away you go. And it's just connected to the network, and like I said, once again, away you go. So that's fine, but I'm not a, you know, it's nice to have the map, but what happens is, as you might have saw in the Freight Yard Manager video, the hump is running much faster than what you would see in Run 8, because it's not really geared to run at a prototypical speed. Even the trains going by, I don't know if those were going at accurate speeds or not. It really didn't matter, because all they do is, if the train is traveling through your area as a through train, what happens is you basically download it to the server and then you spawn it in so that it goes to the next, not the server, but it goes to the next, it becomes available to the next map so that they can download it. So again, it's on demand. You can't take a train and just run it, and in fact you can't run trains yourself. You have to run the maps. So it's all about you controlling the map, which is fine and it's great, especially if you're a yard master. But if you're trying to do that in a set, as far as, let's say you're trying to do that as you know, in like an engineer or something like that, well, that ain't gonna work. You have to be basically in a map, and that's it. You're running the area. You're bringing the trains in. and nothing is real world time, and nothing's really with the idea I had behind with Freight Yard Manager, at least my ideas back at the time, were to have a 3D simulator actually help bring in the trains, so that 3D simulator drivers could actually take the made up trains, bring them in, and run them on the lines. At the time, I wasn't into. I Run 8. I had no idea about it, and it was still under development, if that. But I was thinking something like Microsoft Train Simulator or something would be one that you could use. And funny enough, is later on, years later, RTS, if there was, say, for example, a Barstow map, and there was a, I don't know, a Hobart map, let's say, or LA Junction, let's say, in California, in theory, what you could have is a Yardmaster in Barstow, a Yardmaster in LA Junction, and then what would happen is they would control the area under a 2D platform, but it would allow players, or AI, I guess, to either or to actually run the physical trains and have a dispatcher, etc. So it's, I mean, there is certainly the potential for that to happen. RTS can create the software to do that, but at the moment I don't see Run 8 being a factor. I see doing this in spite of whatever Run 8 does. And Run 8 can do whatever they want, really, at this point, because they're going to do whatever they want. And they have their own, they have their own path as to what they want to see their software be. And they do take ideas from people. They do come up with new updates that are interesting, and they're going to have new, new territories eventually, and new people come aboard eventually, I suppose. I don't know how long that is. It seems, like it's been taking a long time, and I understand there's health issues and other issues that have plagued the team last year. It was a tough year for them, but they just released LA, which is actually, considering what's in LA, what they released is quite amazing, I think. So, I mean, kudos to them for that. But anyways, forget Run 8 for a minute. Let's not even focus about this, because this isn't really about Run 8. This is more about what it is that I'm thinking that might be possible. There's two ways of going about doing it. Either it's going to rely on real world data as opposed to maps, or it's going to rely on some form of either it's got to be, to me, it's got to be web-based real world data, or an API or something like Google. And if those things are becoming available, then all that's required is a coordinate system to specify what the track sections are. If we're not using real world data, and we're actually creating the worlds ourselves based on we can either base it on real world data, and I don't know, we can build maps, I suppose. I mean, it can be done. There's no reason why it can't be done. You don't need all the data that Google has, for example, to, and I mean, most of it's coming off the net anyways, but you don't need all the data that Google has to do a rail network, considering that railroads are not everywhere, believe it or not. I mean, they're only going to be, you take a country like Canada, for example, where I live. I mean, yeah, Southern Ontario, there's lines everywhere. In the United States, there's, lines all over the Northeast. But when you get out into the prairies, and you in the plains, and you get up in Canada, there's really only there's CN and CP's transcontinental main line, and there's a couple secondary lines that come across. There's a few that come up and down, but generally, I mean, you've got vast open spaces of lines that just travels for miles, and other than, you know, the cities in between, there's not much there. The reason why I say having a real world map as a background is easier, because then all the creators of the lines are doing is they're basically inputting in the data. So they're inputting in the tracks sections. They're inputting where the switches are. They're inputting the speed limits, where the signals are, and then from there it would go down to, you know, what kind of operations would be running, where the industries are, what cars would be loaded, what would be emptied, all kinds of various data. But it wouldn't rely on anything else. That data can be continuously updated and added as seed fit, or you know, I guess eventually, I mean, you either have one global simulation, or you would have possibly multiple. You could have maybe, you know, depending upon different servers, if you wanted to go that route, you could do that potentially, and they could use lines in different areas if they chose, or however they want to put their system, and have either use other people's data maybe with permission or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of ways of going about doing that. If it wasn't real world data, though, like I said, you can create either real world maps yourself, or who's to say you can't create a fictitious map that represents real world. In other words, you have either a proto-lance or a freelance approach to it. And that would give you the kind of background that you would be running on. So what's that all about, and how would that come into a simulator of what I feel is lacking in pretty much every simulator that I have ever seen? Nobody has been able to do this that I'm aware of. We saw an example of a hump. Now I don't recall if that hump was automated or not. I don't think so. I think it's automated in a sense that the track sorting is just like Run 8, but to actually have the train do it itself, I forget how that worked, if it stopped at the end or how that exactly worked. But I'm not talking more. I'm talking more beyond just the mechanics behind it, but actually the automation behind it. And not the automation of the hump itself, but I'm talking about the automation of the yard, the automation of the rail lines, the automation of the switching, the automation of the dispatching. And you say, well, why are you talking about all this automation? Where's the player going to have fun? Well, the player can take part on any position he chooses. That's the beautiful thing about 24/7, was always that anybody anytime can come onto a server and run trains. The problem was we didn't have all those trains, we didn't have a dispatcher. We basically had a line, and it was all yours if you were the only one on, or you might get lucky and have one or two other people on to run with. Once AI came into play, suddenly you had the potential of 100% traffic flow. And that was a big eye-opener for me, and that was a big, that was a big reality for me, that I was just like, yeah, I like this. This is the way I like to do it. So, yeah, AI dispatching is great and all, and that's something I can do for Run 8, but like I said, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not worried about it. It's a pipe dream. It's over. I'm not concerning myself with that any longer. I've moaned, whined, complained, bitched enough about it. I'm done. It's time to move on as far as I'm concerned. Now, that doesn't mean I'm moving on from Run 8 yet. Maybe Run 8 will surprise me and come up with some of these ideas themselves and be able to implement them down the road. Since my son's into it, really, my involvement in Run 8 is actually going to rest in his hands. If he gets really into it, I'll probably continue to do it more. Now, at the moment, I'm still planning on doing it on Sundays and Wednesdays as well. All of a sudden, I have a Saturday session. It's a 3-hour one, it's not a 4-hour one, but I asked him how long he wanted to run. I says, normally I run 4 hours. I says, but you don't have to. I says, we don't have to do that. That's a long time for us, for you. I says, you know, he says, well, I could run a 3-hour session. I said, okay, what time do you want to run? And then we were talking about doing it Friday night, and then it was like, well, then we chose Saturday being better because it just worked it better for us. So we decided to go 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Whereas I go 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays. I'm going to go 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday night. So that's the next session coming up. So I'll continue to do that, especially if he's into it. But he knows as well as everybody else knows, I guess, at this point, that I really want to take the handcuffs off and be able to do, basically use all the creative tools that I have at my disposal and learn it. I don't want to. I don't want to go learning new languages too much. I don't want to be learning how to do graphics arts when I've never done it. I don't want to build a 3D simulator. I just don't. I don't want to. I'm not even worried about the physics, to be quite honest. The physics are, you know, physics are great. Running does a great job. Why would I want to even compete with that? I don't. And it's not that I don't want to create with a 3D, I don't want a 3D simulator, it's just, I want to get the basics down first. And I think, to me, what needs to happen is something that other simulators have not been able to do. And that is AI dispatching, first and foremost, to be able to have what I said I was going to, what I was going to try to prove before. Well, now I'm going to have a platform. If I do it this way, I may actually have a platform where it's going to be necessary to prove, not to prove to anybody, but to prove to myself and to make sure that my designs are legitimate, can work without supervision, can solve issues that come up, can solve potential challenges and any condition. And what that will do is that'll allow the network to continue to push trains through it, at least to places where the trains would, you have your spawn points. Well, it would take it to the despawn points. Like, once you got to the end of the network that was built, it would go to a place at the end of the map, just kind of like what Run 8 does, and it would just basically despawn. Of course, then that brings in a whole can of worms, and that is, what do you do about the ones that actually work industries and switch? And I have a simple challenge to do with that, and that is, okay, what's involved in switching? Let's forget about physics. What's involved in actually switching? You have to know what tracks are available to you, how to sort the cars, where to set them out. So there has to be rules in play, but there also has to be a dynamic to take whatever the situation is at the time and have the AI be able to formulate where it's going to what moves it's going to make. It may not be 100% as good as efficient as a human. See, because the difference between the humans and the AI is going to just basically be as smart as the code that you program it with. Humans have a creative intellect and are better pattern recognizers. So humans can do it, but I'm not trying to replace humans for the sake of replacing humans. What I'm trying to do is create a 100% fully integrated railroad transportation simulator with full 100% trains, with all the industries being switched, with everything happening, and then have the end user, like yourself or anybody else who wants to participate, to take on whatever position they desire that is available anywhere in the world map. So if you want to be a dispatcher, well, guess what? You can take over for the AI and you can be the dispatcher. And if you find it's too much and your trains are getting bogged down and it's becoming too tough, hand it back over to the AI. The AI cleans up the mess for you and everything's fine. If humans make mistakes, oh well, AIs are going to make mistakes too. Because again, they're going to go to what the programming do. Same with the yards, or running the trains, or whatever. Now, running the trains is going to be a lot different than what we're used to in our 3D worlds. The way I see it is, it's going to be, because it's going to be 2D based, what I see is basically following a train, center based, with the engine and the consist behind it. Probably not all the cars visible unless you zoomed out, but you would actually see the scenery top down around you and see the signals coming up ahead as you're passing through. Maybe it would start out at the bottom of the screen with the engines and the first couple of cars or whatever the heck it is, and you're looking up the screen, or maybe starting from the left and heading right, or whatever the direction may be, I guess, and see as much track as you can up ahead. And then I don't know if there'd be honking for grade crossings and all that other stuff, or if you know, the bottom line is there'd be signals and you'd see other trains going by. But the emphasis wouldn't be so much on trains. The emphasis would be on a system, being part of a system. Now, could that data feed in to a 3D simulator? Well, absolutely. Can you imagine if a 3D simulator could somehow, if it had all the 3D routes, and this 2D version of a railroad transportation simulator was running in the background, and all it has to do is input the data as to where those trains are, the signal indications, you name it, boom. Now you have a 3D simulator. If you want to run the trains, you would have infinite number of trains available. You would have full 100% capacity. Plus, you'd be able to do anything that you could do in the 2D, except you'd have real-world physics. You would be under AI dispatching. You would run whatever world you wanted to run, etc., etc. But I'm thinking about the 2D approach now, and I think I have to go simpler anyways. I really do. So if I do it, that's kind of the way I want to do it. It's nice scenery here, anyways. That's it for the scenery. But that's pretty much it, because my voice is going out, so I'm gonna call it for this video. But yeah, I'll have to see if that other video works. But anyway, that's the ideas that I'm thinking of. I'm not giving up Run 8 at this point. I'm not doing the same mistake I made before, where I went all in and tried to learn way above my head, and then got discouraged, and I was missing out on the fun. I don't want to miss out on the fun. Run 8 is still fun when I'm doing it. So For now, that's good. I just don't see. I see it becoming repetitive down the road. I just see too much of. I just see too much limitations or lack of potential, lack of its true potential. Let's say. I mean, it's still, like I said, there's no competition out there for Run 8 right now, nor am I trying to make competition for it. But I just want to go my own way and possibly have something. But these are just ideas I'm floating around. We'll see how long. I mean, I might look into Unity and all that. Plus, we're getting into this. Finally, we're getting into the better weather. So I'm looking at getting my raft out this weekend to make sure all the patches are set up and I got the right equipment and it fits in my car and all the other stuff. So, but the better weather is coming, so it means my time on weekends are going to be, well, it's going to be with my son anyways, but we'll see how things go with the other extracurricular stuff, especially on Sundays, because that's where I have the most time, and it depends on my attitude. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, that's it for now, guys. So I will see you. Actually, I guess I'll see you on Saturday evening at this point. Will be the next session. We might be on before then, because we have some map additions and stuff that we have to get through. But I might do some off live stream, and then I'll see if he wants to do it or not, or if he wants to keep it off live stream and just work on the background, and then at our own pace, and then definitely a session 6 p.m. on Saturday. And another one on Sunday at 6 p.m. So Run 8 servers, they're available if you want to sign up for those. Anyways, if I don't talk to you before then, I'll see you on Saturday evening, 6 p.m. And I'll be on 10 minutes before as usual, at least 5:50. Have a good one. We'll see you.